evening, or wherever you are joining us from. My name is Katie Lane. I'm a Product Marketing Manager here at Meraki, and today we have a very special webinar. We have Jamin Lafave joining us from Wild Rose Public Schools, and so we're going to be diving into that network implementation and talking about some of the ways they have implemented Meraki. But before we get started, I'm going to ask you to answer this quick one-question poll, and then we'll go ahead and jump right into the slides here. The question is, how did you first hear about Meraki? So I'll just give you a second to answer that, and then we'll dive right in. All right, thanks. I see almost all of you have answered. I'll give you one more second here. All right, perfect. Thank you so much for giving us that feedback. All right, so let's quickly go over the agenda. I'm first going to give a little introduction to Meraki, a background for those people who are less familiar, and then I'll talk very briefly about why cloud networking, look at some of the benefits of cloud networking and how Meraki has implemented that cloud solution. Next, we're going to be spending the majority of our time talking with Jamin and looking at Wild Rose Public Schools. And during this, we're going to be looking at the Wild Rose Public School network, as well as jumping into their network and actually looking at live exactly some of the features and functionality that Jamin and his team have implemented. And finally, Q&A at the end. So actually, I'd like you all to not wait until the end of the session to ask your questions. Go ahead and ask them throughout the session, and I have my colleague Jackie here with me, and she's going to be putting your questions up here on the board for me so that we can ask me or Jamin these questions immediately and help that flow a little better. And finally, a brief overview of the product line, and that should cover it up. So a couple housekeeping items here before we get started. Very exciting news. We're going to be giving out a free wireless access point for all the qualified IT professionals on the line. This is a 3-year cloud management license, and it's an 802.11 NAP. And all that we ask for you to do to receive this access point is to contact your Meraki rep, and you'll be able to find that person in the reminder email you received before the webinar today. So go ahead and give them a call. Obviously, want to make sure this gets to the right location, and so just help us out with that shipping information. All right, and with that covered, let's talk a little bit about Meraki. Meraki is now part of Cisco, as some of you may be aware of. Meraki is actually the leader in cloud networking. We have thousands of customer networks deployed worldwide in hundreds of countries. And we got our start out of a research group from MIT, and they were looking at deploying a large-scale wireless network that spanned Cambridge, Massachusetts. And in order to manage that network, they ended up developing a management platform that was managed over the web in order to manage all of these separate access points. And since then, they've expanded that wireless and management platform to now encompass switching, security, WAN optimization, and also mobile device management products. And so now, as part of Cisco, Meraki is going to continue to increase that investment in R&D and now to use Cisco's reach to bring Meraki to new markets and new products. So Meraki is trusted in hundreds of K-12 campuses and many verticals as well, but as we're focusing on K-12 here, wanted to show you a few of our customers, Rainbow Schools, obviously Wild Rose, Jeffco Public Schools in Colorado, a huge array here. So now let's talk a little bit about why cloud networking briefly before we jump in. And I want to just take a step back and look at the cloud and talk about how the cloud is able to help us increase the efficiency of our IT staffs. And this is true if we apply the cloud to many industries, and it definitely holds true for IT. First, looking at manageability, for instance, Meraki is able to bring this centralized management to IT. And this is true centralized management. This is perfect for quick K-12 customers that have very, very distributed sites and many devices deployed all over different sites, and be able to manage those from a single network. second also is we're very, very scalable with this cloud type of solution. So the great thing about the cloud is that you can scale way, way up or way, way down. And you'll get the same amount of features if you're deploying 5 devices or 5,000 devices. So it really allows you to grow or shrink with the needs of your organization. And finally, cost savings here. And this one just kind of falls in when you are able to increase manageability and scalability. Cost savings just falls in right after those two, allowing IT administrators to focus on creating that great experience instead of babysitting the network all day long. So Meraki is able to increase the efficiency of IT with our complete line of cloud-managed networking products. Starting on the left here, we have wireless access points, our Meraki MR line. And moving down to the right, our MX security appliances. These are firewall and content filtering devices. We also have Ethernet switches. These are our access layer switches. And finally, on the far right, our mobile device management platform, Systems Manager. This is our only product that isn't actually a hardware device. This is for managing all of your mobile devices, wherever they are, whenever they're connected up to the internet. We're able to actually push out policies to those individual devices. And all of these products are managed centrally through our web-based dashboard. This is what we're actually going to be looking at today to demonstrate the Wild Rose Public School District Network. All right, so before we jump into Wild Rose, I want to just briefly touch on a little bit of the cloud networking architecture, what's happening in the background when these devices are actually connecting up to the cloud. So you see here in the center we have our hardware devices that are actually talking to our data centers. And we have data centers around the world. These data centers are backed up and redundant. So if something were to happen with one data center, it would immediately fail over to your backed up network configuration in another data center. We have a 99.99% uptime SLA. And then you as the network administrator are able to connect over the web, and you see here on the left the web page. This is connecting over HTTPS, so once again a secure connection in order to manage these devices from wherever you are. So let's dive a little bit further into that connection between those hardware devices and the cloud. So looking at the left here, we're able to see our hardware devices are actually only transferring management data up to the cloud. So all of the actual traffic is either going to stay locally on the LAN or go directly to its destination somewhere else on the WAN. So this type of architecture, we call it an out-of-band cloud management architecture. And it allows us a few main benefits. One of them is it's extremely scalable because we're not actually throttling all of the traffic through the cloud. It allows us to scale very, very easily and deploy multiple devices to many sites in minutes. It's also very reliable. As I mentioned, we're not passing any traffic through the cloud. So if you lose connection to the cloud, all of your communication is actually still going to function exactly as it had before. All of the Meraki devices actually retain their local configuration on the devices themselves, and the only thing that's transferred are updates that you've made to the configuration. So as soon as that internet connection is resumed, those changes will be pushed out to your devices. And the last one here, very, very secure. No traffic passes through the cloud, so this allows us to be fully HIPAA and PCI Level 1 certified. We undergo third-party security audits and daily penetration tests on our data centers to ensure security of this architecture. All right, with that covered, I want to take a moment and introduce Jamin Lafave. Jamin, are you here with us?
Yeah, I sure am.
Great, thanks so much for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself and maybe give us a little background about the schools that you manage and your team?
Sure. So I'm here with Dan Castro, who is our network administrator. Hi. And I've been with Wild Rose for going on 12 years now and been the lead architect for the jurisdiction for about the last 7. And I've just recently taken over full control of the entire department. So I have been in charge of the infrastructure for all of the WAN, enterprise, and access switches since about the last 7 years.
Great. All right. And can you talk a little bit about the school district that you manage? You have about 20 schools and a large number of students.
Yeah, so primarily we have 4 large high schools, and then we're a rural district, so we have a lot of geographical separation, which definitely makes the management of local access switches and access points a little more complicated.
Definitely.
On our benefit, though, we do have a fiber optic network between all our sites, so there's tremendous resiliency in the infrastructure, but when we get to the site, it was about having a better way to manage that infrastructure.
I see. Yeah, I definitely want to dig into that a little later on about how all of your sites are actually connected, because that's very cool. So as we're jumping in, I wanted to talk a little bit about how your network is used, what type of devices are on the network, and what kind of your requirements are for your network at the schools. Can you tell us about how the infrastructure is used?
Yeah, so from the wireless perspective, the majority of what we support is our corporate Windows laptops that we provide to teachers and to administrators. So we do that through Radius and Network Policy Server 802.1x, and that's just been solid through Meraki. The majority of the mobile devices are actually going to be BYOD. We probably support between 300 to 400 corporate laptops, and what we're seeing right now is on a daily basis, give or take 2,000 devices. And they range anywhere from Android devices to Blackberries to Apple devices, iPod touches. I mean, we stretch the entire gamut. The network just supports all of it.
Wow, that is quite a range there. Okay, great. And are there any applications that your school uses that require any special attention or any specific use cases?
I wouldn't say that there's specific use cases, but you know, part of what we're trying to do moving to cloud with Google Apps for Education and a push to one-to-one Chromebook devices or a BYOD model is, regardless of how much LAN traffic that we put at the head end, which we have a tremendous amount already, the kids seem to utilize 100% of capacity on a daily basis. So providing resiliency by using, you know, the traffic shaping at the access point, and again through the edge device, promoting the use of Google, so saying that is the highest priority traffic, allows us to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, providing a really good performance to the cloud services.
Very cool. Okay, thanks. So I wanted to start talking about the actual devices that you've implemented. I see here that you have actually implemented Meraki access points, security appliance, and switches. So I wanted to take a second to actually jump over to your network, and maybe you can help us talk through how this is organized. Oh, I guess I've been logged out here.
Sure, and one more thing to note is we actually just ordered 35 more switches last week.
Oh, very cool. All right. So let's see. I'm looking right now at let's go ahead and back out to your organization here. And I'm going to give a quick background just for those people on the phone who've never seen the Meraki interface. This is actually looking at the Meraki dashboard, and all of the wireless, switching, and security appliances are all managed through this centralized dashboard. So we can see here, if I'm zooming out, we can see exactly where these networks are located in Alberta. And then from here I can see on the right all of the different networks. And so we have switch networks, wireless networks, and also security appliance networks. And from here I can actually jump into each of these and start managing them from right here in the dashboard and get a live update of exactly what's happening. So you can see here that most of these are green. That means everything is healthy. And in some cases there's some red shields here, and that means that might be an instance where we want to dive in and take a closer look at what's happening with that particular site. So Jamin, do you want to talk through how you have the network organized?
Sure, yeah, and you know, it's interesting that you actually see those as red, and that's our shared partnership with the other school jurisdiction, and they're actually doing network migrations right now, so it's just kind of neat because I didn't even notice myself today. So.
Oh, gotcha. That's very cool.
So originally we had started with, we had put every school in its own network.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that we were going to have a need for a lot of diversity between the different schools. And I mean, that was simple, a little bit annoying to manage, just even in the fact that we had 20 different sites. And
Mm-hmm.
with the way that Meraki works, the way that it does so much of the automation in terms of content and layer 7, and it's so easy that it allowed us to actually make our network a lot more open. And so after about 6 months of running with 20 networks, we were able to converge all of those networks down into basically one, aside from a few VPN sites. So for us to make a process change or a configuration change across every access point at any one of our schools is through one dashboard, one click button, press save, go.
Very cool. So you've combined all of your wireless networks specifically into one where you manage them all together?
Yep.
And that's this WRSD wireless here. So we can actually sort these by the number of clients, and we can actually see the networks that are most utilized here. So from this page, I can actually jump into your wireless network, and we can take a look at all of the access points that you're currently managing and how much data, kind of a snapshot overview of what's happening on your network. So as it is summer, it is probably quite low to what you normally see.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost insignificant, but on a daily basis, we're pushing about 350 gigabytes through the network.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so we're doing between 4 and 5 terabytes a month. And I mean, basically at this point, all of our edge is Meraki.
Very cool. And I definitely want to get into that a little later about the connection from the MX out to the WAN. But let's see. Right now, I'm going to focus on wireless here and just kind of give an overview of what we're able to see. We can here import different maps if we wanted to, and then could place all of these access points on a map. But these are automatically placed from Google Maps, or have you arranged them here as well?
We just finished moving the maps over, so Denmark still has to put the maps in, like from the old organizations that we had, the old networks.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, very cool.
So we're using the satellite image, which was pretty fun for us today.
Oh, that's neat. So when did you do that migration?
About 2 months or 3 months ago.
Okay. All right. So from here, we can actually look at all of the individual access points in your network. And yeah, as Jamin mentioned, we can import maps. So none of the maps are actually imported here right now. But if we import maps, we could then drag the access points to exactly where they are on the floor plans. And so we're able to get a kind of a snapshot of what is happening with these access points here. We can see that they're all green once again. And these numbers over the access points are telling us how many clients are either connected currently or have connected in the last day or week. And you can set that to whatever setting you like. And from here, I can actually jump into one of these access points and get an overview of what's happening exactly with this access point. So are you able to use a lot of the live tools here, Jamin, for live troubleshooting?
Yeah, we try to use most of it, like channel utilization and spectrum analysis when we were troubleshooting clients or just figuring out what's happening on our network.
I think initially we had a lot more unknowns, and what Meraki enabled us to do is actually have the visibility to see like what the actual traffic was at the access points at the very edge from the client device. So I'll say that initially there was some configuration in terms of like restraining or layer 7 policing or prioritizing certain traffic, but I mean, once we had the first sort of 3 schools up and running, those rules are they just run themselves. Like it's just straightforward.
So that's very interesting. So initially you actually made more traffic shaping rules, but then once you got the wireless set up how you wanted it, you were able to back those off?
Yeah, back them off and also just not worry about it anymore. Like, because of the visibility that we had, we were able to actually see the traffic and what was happening, which was a lot different than other products where we were having to pay a whole lot of money to get that sort of visibility. So once we were able to ascertain, okay, what are the clients actually trying to do and what are they using it for, we built a standard set of rules, and then we just, they just deploy across the entire network. So we don't have to manage each individual site through a separate dashboard, through a separate controller. It's just one set of rules.
That's very neat. For those people on the phone, I want to dive in a little further to what Damon and Danmar are talking about here. So all of the Meraki devices actually do what we call client fingerprinting and application fingerprinting. So we're actually able to see all of the client devices that are currently connected and also the traffic that those client devices are using. So right now I'm looking at an access point page. If I jump over to the clients page here, I'm able to see all of the clients that I've connected in the last day. And I could click on any of these clients and get kind of a snapshot of information of things that the access point has learned about this specific client just by watching the traffic go across the network. So from here we're able to see things like the host name that we've guessed here from DHCP traffic, and also things like the manufacturer and the operating system, as well as 802.11n capabilities. But then further, what they were more talking about was getting this information about the type of applications that this client is using, and then also from a network-wide level, understanding the application usage on the network as a whole. So from here I can take a look at what all of the clients are doing, or just look at specific SSIDs. So maybe you guys were able to look at your guest or student SSIDs and then understand the traffic better for those networks.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll throw up a scenario because I have the expectation iOS 7 will be released full on production for September. And, without having real-time visibility, I mean, that would probably bring our network down to its knees. So, all we have to do is just watch our dashboard and just, sort of see how the iTunes or Apple updates traffic is going. And we can constrain that traffic at every single access point in about 25 seconds. And that's just, I mean, I don't know how you can even compete with that.
Oh, that's a very neat application. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see. Yeah, actually, I'd like to dive in a little bit further to your wireless network here. And I actually have a slide that kind of goes into an overview of how you have your different SSIDs configured specifically for wireless. Can you walk us through how you've organized your wireless network and how you've split it up for different user groups?
Yeah, for sure. So it's not that I don't think we've necessarily split them up by user group, but rather by device type.
Okay.
Or their role in the organization. So the secure network is the devices that we own and that we know, and so they have certificate enrollment through the network policy server and Active Directory. So basically, they act as though they're a wired Ethernet computer while on wireless. So
Gotcha.
They walk the same, they talk the same. The users can just pick up a laptop and go. They can roam between any of our sites. That just works.
Gotcha.
On the Chromebook network, because Google allows us to manage the Chromebooks through the cloud, we can actually cloud manage the pre-shared key for each of the Chromebooks. So we made that network just to use a pre-shared key so that we do have that encryption. And what's nice is that it's the same pre-shared key in Meraki, and we never have to give it to the students on the Chromebook, and we can change it through two cloud services, one being Google, the other being Meraki, without ever touching an access point or a Chromebook in the event that that pre-shared key was ever released.
Oh, gotcha. So you're able to change it on the client devices using the Chromebook application?
Yeah, so using Google Apps for Education.
Oh, that's very neat, too.
In other words, I mean, Meraki is allowing us to support our cloud endeavors using Google for Apps for Education. So we can cloud manage the infrastructure as well as cloud managing the end devices.
Very neat. Let's actually go in and look at that because that's kind of cool. If we go back to the Wild Rose network here and go to Configure and Access Control, one of the people on the line just asked how many SSIDs can you have per network. You can have 15 different SSIDs, and you can see here the SSIDs that Jamin has just talked about, the secure wireless, the managed access, the Chromebook, and also the guest network. So from here I can jump into, let's look at that secure wireless you were just talking about, Jamin. from here, I can set all of my association requirements, splash page settings. So you can see here that no splash page is enabled on the secure wireless. And we're using WPA2 Enterprise with Radius for those secure laptops. And also on the bottom here, my IP addressing, you've gone ahead and put these devices as part of the local LAN. So they're in bridge mode here. And so they're going to join the network as part of 250 VLAN and get an IP address from that pool and able to act just like they're on the LAN. The difference is for some of these other SSIDs, let's look at, Jamin, what was the second one you're talking about, the Chromebook network?
The Chromebook
here?
is called WC Managed Access.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So the second SSID, from here we can manage the pre-shared key for the Chromebook networks that Jamin had talked about, and I could change this, or Jamin could change this pre-shared key. I couldn't change the pre-shared key. And from here, we could have that pre-shared key be pushed out, the new pre-shared key pushed out to all of the access points. And then that's really neat how you're using also the Google services for education to also update that pre-shared key for all of the Chromebooks. And if we continue on down to the bottom, once again, the IP addressing and traffic shaping, or sorry, addressing and traffic, the IP assignment. As opposed to bridge mode for that secure network, here they're using NAT mode. So this actually makes it so clients are not going to be joining the local LAN. So the access point is actually going to be giving out an IP address using Meraki DHCP and not actually putting those clients onto the network.
And the built-in client isolation just takes it up a notch as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, so are you able to use that in, well, that actually is effective here by using NAT.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the clients here, if you're using NAT mode, none of the clients can actually see each other. Clients cannot communicate with each other. And to even further this separation, we could set layer 3 or layer 7 traffic shaping rules on this specific SSID. So Jamin, here, can you talk us through how you have the firewall set up on this Chromebook network?
I guess basically on the Chromebook network it would actually be deny access to LAN. We do have government issued media servers that are located at each one of our schools.
Oh, gotcha.
So we've just done a layer 3 allow rule so that the Chromebooks on the guest network, completely isolated from our local area network, can still get to these to single internal server.
Oh, very neat. Okay, so I see here at the bottom you have deny access to local LAN, and then you're allowing access to these individual media servers at the different sites.
Yep. And I guess we do have the 3 other services at the bottom, which would be just some internal web servers for our IT department, and then actually the VMware View Horizon HTML client.
Gotcha.
So I mean, we're able to balance, you know, all of the security tools, but at the same time, on each access point, poke individual holes. And we can also tag these specific rules that we want to go to only certain access points in the network.
Right. Okay. So how are you using that? You're maybe segmenting a specific school to have its own set of firewall rules?
Yep. Or
Gotcha.
on our VPN sites, we have different networks published. So I mean, we have several different options that are available on the VPN site. And so we've tagged some of them as our personal devices at our houses for just the IT people. And so we can publish and test different policies without pushing them out across the entire network using the Meraki tag.
Gotcha. Very cool. Okay. Thanks for walking us through that. I definitely wanted to show, I think it's on your guest network. I know you were talking about how you were limiting traffic to some of those the network upgrades or the iOS upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, we don't normally because we've been doing okay on it. I would say for September we'll have to watch that. But certainly, because we're Google Apps, we're trying to promote and prioritize the Google traffic. So for us, we've kind of restricted things like Dropbox and promoted made a higher priority to the Google HTTPS traffic. So in that way, we're sort of dangling the carrots to the students to go to the services where we have a confidentiality agreement. So instead of students wasting time on box.net or mega.download.com, we can actually have them use our school resources in the cloud through Google.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, thanks for taking us through all of those wireless features. I want to jump back and talk a little bit about the MX features as well, because I know you have, as you mentioned, an MX sitting at the internet edge. And so can you talk us through how you have all your different sites connected?
Sure. So for us, we're kind of lucky because we actually have a municipal area or wide area network that's provided to us. So we connect in at approximately layer 2, layer 3 in some sort of weird fashion. So all of our actual networking is done, so we didn't need to put an MX appliance at every one of our sites, but because all of our head-end traffic goes through a single site, we did need a large device capable of handling gigabit line throughput. And for us, definitely cost was a factor here. The MX400 replaced, for us, 3 devices, which would have been a layer 3 ACL firewall, layer 7 traffic shaper, and the content filter. And then just for fun, Meraki threw in IDS IPS just for fun. And, and they threw in safe search for Google and the YouTube safe search. So, I mean, for us, it was a dramatic cost savings to the tune of probably close to 75% annually. And we actually went from a device that was 100 megabits capable and really wasn't to the Meraki, which, I mean, we've seen up to 700 megabits per second pushed through it with traffic shaping.
Very cool. And what is your WAN connection uplink, the speed?
It's gigabit.
A gigabit? Wow, okay. All right. So let's actually go ahead and jump into your MX and kind of go through some of the features that you've implemented there. Let's see. So I'm going to jump back over to the dashboard here and jump into the MX400 production. So as you can see here on the left, now that we're now looking at the security appliance, the different monitoring commands and configuration commands here on the left that we're able to make changes and get visibility into are a little different because of the different product line. So from here I'm able to get an overview of exactly what's happening on the network, and because all of these sites are connected up through this one MX, this is actually a pretty accurate view of exactly what's happening across your entire site. Are you able to use this summary report to kind of give that quick snapshot of what's going on?
Yeah, we use a custom range of summary for the MX. Actually, if you look at our June 1 to June 30, where it shows that we're pushing 5 terabytes a month.
Oh, if you go scroll back.
We'll have to do a custom range.
Custom range.
Let's see. Here we go. Oh, there we go. June.
Try to drag it back like.
Yeah. Go back to when you guys had students.
It's pretty standard. It looks like 5.2, 5.2, 5.2, just about perfect.
Absolutely. This is great. And then you're able to see exactly what the students are up to, what type of applications they're using across all of the sites.
Yeah, and I mean, we get those reports automatically emailed to us at the end of every month through the scheduled report settings. So I actually have a few of them that are automatically going out to department managers who operate some of our remote sites because, you know, they always want to know what is the technology being utilized for. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Meraki just automates that stuff. I don't have to actually actively go and seek out this data. They just show up.
Yeah, that's very cool that you're able to take that off your hands. Yeah, here you can schedule a report and have that sent out to different users. One of the questions that came in is, do you guys have common rules that are set across all wireless devices from a district-wide perspective? I know you guys already kind of went over this, but can you maybe address that question for the audience here?
Right. So for us, we're kind of it's not a single set of rules because we have the 3 different SSIDs based on the device type.
Mm-hmm.
So the devices would separate sort of the access, But in terms of what users can get to, yeah, we only have one set of content filtering across the jurisdiction.
Gotcha. Great. So let's go ahead and look at some of those features that you guys have implemented. So you have all of the fiber connections connected up through this production MX400. And from here, you can once again get that client view of all of the clients that have connected to your network. So once again, this is probably low because we're looking at over the last day and school's out. So if you maybe expand this out to the last month, it might jump up a little bit and we can see all of the clients that have connected and sent about 3.4 terabits over the last month. And we can also go ahead and go to configure and also check out the firewall settings and content filtering settings and also the IDS that they had mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and look at the content filtering. So Meraki uses Bright Cloud for content filtering, so we automatically import these categories, and it's extremely simple to go ahead and add a category to the blocked website list here, and it'll go ahead and be implemented right here at the edge of the network.
Honestly, the simplicity of just being able to manage the content filtering just like this was, I mean, it's so much simpler than any tool I've used before.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for that. One of the questions that just came in, Jamin, how are you managing privacy and compliance? Maybe they mean privacy for the students. That might be my guess. Privacy for the students and maybe compliance, PCI compliance. Oh, SIPA compliance, I'm sorry. SIPA compliance?
Well, your device is SIPA compliant.
Right, exactly.
So that handles that. But we don't, I mean, we're in Canada. We actually don't have to live by that rule. But
yes, that's true,
too. Already handled that for us.
Okay. Yeah, that's
so in
true.
terms of privacy, basically on the guest wireless network, there is no expectation of privacy. It's a guest wireless network. So any network that we provide with a device that we provide is either 802.1x through PKI or it's WPA2 PSK.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and throw those out as they're coming in. So definitely those people on the line, go ahead and keep the questions coming and we'll try to address them all. So Jamin, are you implementing any traffic shaping rules on your MX here?
We were doing a lot more. We just recently, about 3 months ago, got the upgrade to the gigabit on the head end. So obviously we're in a kind of a pretty special scenario where we have a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. I wanted to just show the people on the line here how you might implement a new traffic shaping rule. And so just for example here, and I actually can't make any changes, but I can show you here how you might go ahead and add a new traffic shaping rule, and then we can pick from these categories, maybe Facebook for instance, and then I could just go ahead and throttle that bandwidth down. Or you can also do things like set priority to be higher for other types of traffic. So looking specifically at what you guys have implemented here, you have ensured this high priority for your voice and video and Gmail and some other specific applications here. And we can also actually set custom rules, so you can do things like define a custom expression, a particular host name or IP address range or port number, and have the traffic shaping rule applied to those devices connecting.
So before we had the gigabit head end, we only had a 60 megabit per second internet connection, which was completely saturated the entire time. So the traffic shaping was far more important to us previously than it is now. But being able to restrict that traffic like YouTube and stuff at the access point, but still allowing it for our teachers on their laptops, it was really important at the time. So these traffic shaping rules, but they're still in place. I mean, they may not apply anymore because our line rate on the edge is so fast. But I mean, you can see the value that we had in being able to prioritize that traffic. Like that's our video conferencing. The Bellamy software is actually our HR ERP suite. So I mean, it was very important that we that we made sure that we had resiliency on those specific services, regardless of how much YouTube the kids were trying to eat up.
Absolutely.
And on the actual the layer 7 ACLs, where we block the peer-to-peer traffic, I would say is just as valuable as being able to shape them.
Right, that's definitely true as well. Yeah, let's see, if I go back to firewall and leave this page. So as opposed to on the wireless, where the firewall and traffic shaping rules are on the same page, on our MX security appliance, our firewall rules are on their own page here, and you can see there are quite a few implemented. And if we get down to the layer 7 firewall rules, they've actually denied peer-to-peer traffic. And these are, once again, automatically populated categories that you can just go ahead and select from. So here I could add a new layer 7 firewall rule, click peer-to-peer, and then select from some of these already uploaded peer-to-peer applications, and just go ahead and implement that across the entire network here. And so we're at the MX, right at the edge, so this would be for every single device connecting to the network. And one thing that's interesting to note about the way Meraki handles these firewall and traffic shaping rules is, as opposed to doing it on an interface level, we're actually doing this by device. So as we had looked at how you might set specific firewall and traffic shaping rules on a per SSID level, you can also set group policies and define layer 3 firewall rules, layer 7 firewall rules, and traffic shaping rules on a per device basis or group of devices. So a lot of variability in how you implement that.
A funny story about the MX400. When we went to do the implementation, we were going to transition from our old firewall, and we'd actually procured a board from a buddy in the interim. We'll say a relatively expensive device. It would actually have been more expensive than the MX and only had the layer 3 basic feature sets. And Danmar had probably spent 2 weeks trying to get that device ready to go. It was Christmas break. He spent, what, 2-3 days trying to get this thing to go. And it was just so convoluted. Everything was through basic CLI. And finally, we just gave up, and we said, well, let's just put the MX into production. And, I mean, it's just laughable, but I would say within 3 hours that next morning, the MX400 was completely production on our edge device with all of our DMZ stuff.
Very cool. I like that story. Well, I actually just had a question come in that was, what is the biggest factor in going with Meraki? And would it be that manageability that you just talked about, or is it something else?
So for me, I guess I'm going to look at 2 aspects. One is going to be that so much of the trivial maintenance is just eliminated. And on the flip side to that, the feature sets continue to mature based on the feedback from the customer base. I'm going to say that Meraki probably has the fastest and or best customer feedback loop in the business. So I mean, feature sets that, I mean, personally that I requested, things like 2-factor authentication. I mean, Meraki actually takes into account what the customer's needs are and provides services such as, you know, we had the Google Force Safe Search. So I never have to worry about any of my students coming to school and, I won't say searching inappropriately, but getting the inappropriate results through the top 3 search engines on planet Earth. And those are features that really show that Meraki cares about the customer. And Danmar probably has his own opinion of why he likes it.
The reason I like it is probably the simplicity of configuration. When I was configuring a DMZ configuration on the previous vendor that we have, it's I actually like overthinking what I'm going to put on Meraki. It probably just works simple. Yeah, so
For the DMZ configuration?
Like most of the configuration, because we were trying to migrate the configuration from our previous vendor to the Meraki.
Gotcha.
So in other words, we made it overcomplicated just out of expectation that it should be.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's a pretty neat application as well. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah, it takes a little bit of a mindset change in the way that you go about configuring your network.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Meraki just makes everything so intuitive that half the work is done.
Great. All right, thank you guys so much for sharing both of those. So we're getting a bunch of questions coming in. I wanted to keep trying to address these. One of the questions is, let's see, how do you handle end-user radius certification? Do you install 802.1x on the, for configuring 802.1x on the individual devices?
Yeah, so it's certificate enrollment through Active Directory.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And then, see a couple other questions here. Can you have end-user notification of blocked apps and content? And yes and no. If you are blocking a user from a certain application, then you can actually have it pop up that is telling you that that is blocked. So yes. Let's see.
But not on the layer 7 though. On the you can actually block the content. But
right.
If I was just blocking YouTube through layer 7 and restricting it, the user wouldn't know.
Right. Right. Exactly. For the traffic shaping, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. The user wouldn't know if you were just limiting the bandwidth available for that application. Yeah, that's definitely a good point there. Okay, great. And I know we are running a little tight on time here, but I wanted to also talk briefly about the switches that you guys are also using. And don't want to try to squeeze too much in here, but let's see, there are a lot of features that are kind of unique about these switches compared to a typical switch. Probably the main one for me is the fact that you can actually, once again, see that client information on a switch level, which is pretty unique. And so if you go over to the switch network here, once again, we can see all of the clients that are actually connecting to these switch ports. And it's also extremely simple to manage and make configuration changes to the switches. So how are you guys using the switches? Do you have all of your access points connected? Are these your main aggregation switches in your network?
Well, with the order that we put in last week, we will be 100% Meraki Cloud Ethernet, hopefully by September.
Oh, great.
So
and how many, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask how many you generally need per school, or is this just by the size, obviously, but
I mean, there's going to be quite a bit of diversity from the high schools to the elementary schools.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have all your switches, again, in the same network overview for all of your distributed schools as well?
Yep.
Okay.
All under one network dashboard.
So, in other words, it's one big switch with 1,580 ports.
Exactly. So yeah, this is definitely a good thing to point out here. One of the things that's really different about the way that you configure switch ports with Meraki is Meraki has what we call virtual stacking. And this is basically a way to manage all of these various switch ports all from a single location. So you can actually make configuration changes to multiple switch ports across multiple switches all at once if you wanted to. So right now we're looking at all of the, as Jamin mentioned, 1,500 switch ports across all of their schools. And from here I can search for specific switches or specific ports. If I type in 1 through 10, this will bring up the first 10 ports on every switch. And if I wanted to, I could select all of these 309 ports and make a sweeping change across all of the ports. So this is how we might make a configuration change. We can do things like enable or disable spanning tree, set the link speed, enable or disable PoE, and also set the VLAN information on these switches right here in the dashboard. So extremely easy to make changes and manage all of these switch ports. All right. So, I guess, sorry, trying to answer all the questions that are coming in here.
Keep in mind that all of these switches are across layer 3 segments, fiber interconnected, right? Like normally this would be a traditional, a lot more difficult to manage. So these switches are, in 20 different physical locations with layer 3 interconnectivity, and Meraki doesn't care. It just sees them all as one big switch.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that note as well. So how are you guys, I mean, is there any way you're managing the switches differently than you might manage a traditional switch? Or is this the main way, the way you're able to make changes across all of the switch ports at once?
Um, I don't know, because to be honest, we don't really manage the switches anymore. They just self-manage. Like, we put them in, and then we configure the VLANs as we need, and PoE and RTSP, and I mean, there is no management. We put a maintenance window, and Meraki does that for us.
Okay, that is a fine answer. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's see, I wanted to briefly, while we're in here, jump into the switch status page because I love how you can troubleshoot with these switches so much differently than you would a normal switch port. So here I've jumped into just one of the switches that you guys have at one of your sites, and here's the overview page for exactly what's going on with this switch, and we can see all of the green ports are the ports that are actually live and active. And once again, we have these live tools that we have for each one of our products. So you can do things like cable test and check out the forwarding table, or wake clients, maybe some device that went to sleep that was connected to a specific port, ping and throughput and blink LEDs all right here from the dashboard. So it really changes the troubleshooting experience, whereas before you might have had to do things like go physically to where that device is, then connect to the switch or SSH into the device, check connectivity to the devices that are trying to connect. And we can also do things like do a packet capture from right here in the dashboard. So I guess if you guys haven't had to do much troubleshooting, you might not have used this very often either.
Not a whole lot, but when Danmar was gone to Vegas, I actually had to go and try and locate a client device. And
Oh,
it's
yeah?
probably been 3 years since I've actually touched any of our switches because Danmar just takes care of it. So honestly, if I had to go back into CLI or Cisco Network Manager, not pick on Cisco, but if I had to use those tools, I probably would have been a day trying to just get myself oriented about figuring out all of his root passwords and all of his enable passwords and getting into all of the tool sets. And instead, because I have access to dashboard, I just went to dashboard. I knew the MAC address of the device I was looking for. I just typed it in, and it told me which switch and which port.
Very neat.
So,
All right.
I mean, that's the manager doing the network guy's job, and I can still do it because it's so simple.
Just to add on that, right, not to pick on Cisco, if you're trying to set up a packet capture over WAN, like over a different location to another location, it will probably take you at least 30 minutes or an hour, but with Meraki switches, it's just 3 clicks and start the capture.
Definitely. Yeah, I love how you can just, instead of going in and actually connecting to the device and setting up a span, how you might normally have to do, here I can actually output the packet capture right here into this dot box, or you can have this exported to a PCAP, or now to CloudShark as well.
Yeah, no, the CloudShark.
Yeah, I think that was a new addition recently. All right, great. Thank you guys so much. Let's see, I think we're getting to the end. I want to just kind of wrap up if you had anything new that was coming for Wild Rose that you wanted to talk about, or just any new, I know you just said you ordered new switches, so obviously continuing to build out your network.
And initially when we started down the switch path with Meraki, we were looking at more of the larger switches because there was nothing smaller than a 24 port. So with the release of the 8 port, we're able to go and find some of these small repeater switches that we have there, servicing, say, a portable that was added on at a later time in a school, et cetera.
Great. All right.
Yeah, and then just the one thing there is about the shared partnership with another jurisdiction. And we have another small rural jurisdiction that we're sort of working together to bring up a standard of connectivity for the students across the province. And so with Meraki, we're actually able to share their infrastructure with ours through the single dashboard. So we can work together and leverage expertise. And in the advent that their network administrator is on holidays or on vacation, we can actually just sign in through Meraki and assist them with deployment or troubleshooting or fixing. And they can do
great. That's excellent, yeah. Are they able to take advantage of your 1 gig pipeline as well, or do they have their own?
I told you yes, then that would be
oh.
right. That is the answer, yes.
Great. Thank you guys so much, Jamin and Danmark, for sharing with us, and I think we were able to answer most of the questions that came in. I want to take a second and just wrap up here. Meraki actually offers free evals, so if you've seen any products that we've talked about here, we do free shipping both ways and free evals at no cost at all to you, so definitely contact us, meraki.com/eval, in order to check out any of these products that we talked about. And just to kind of wrap up the products that we've talked about today, these are our 802.11n access points. We have indoor and outdoor models. We've gone through a lot of the features already, but things like traffic shaping, mesh, network access control, and guest access that are all built in to these access points. So all of these functionalities are available to you without any of the other devices. I know the Wild Rose Network has the whole gambit, but these by themselves will be able to give you all of the functionality that we looked at today. Also, the cloud managed security appliances. So this is the MX400 that we had looked at, and we have various models depending on the size of the network that you're required. And so these have a complete firewall, traffic shaping, content filtering, and also that wireless intrusion prevention. Sorry, not wireless intrusion prevention, but intrusion prevention and detection, and as well as WAN optimization. And finally, the cloud managed switches that we had just talked about as well. We have 24 and 48 port models, as well as just released an 8-port model as well. And these come with a lifetime warranty, complete voice, video, and QoS functionality. All right, and I think that wraps it up for us. And thank you guys, Jamin, Danmark, so much for joining us and for your great input onto and letting us actually look at your network. So that was pretty valuable to the people on the line.
No problem. Right on.
All right. Thanks so much, and I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Join us next time.
The organized